Listen, you're not gonna find anything on me, okay? Trust me.
Empty your pockets into the tray, sir, or we'll have to. Your pockets, sir?
Lady, the problem isn't in my pants.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time to talk all things X-Men. We got a little bit of news. We got a couple comic books to cover today. Obviously, we've already reviewed Inferno in depth, but we will get Doc's opinions of the Inferno issue at the end of the episode. How you doing, Doc? Obviously, he's the X-Men historian, the Marvel aficionado. How you doing, Doc?
I'm wonderful, sir. Thanks for having me back on. Surprised it's still going.
Hey, we're about to transition to some other things. We'll talk to the people about that another time because it's hitting the fan here in the Thinking Critical household. Everybody's sick. I got a baby in the hospital and everything, so I have not read up on everything that we're going to talk about. So you're mostly going to be hearing from Doc this episode, but that's why you have friends, right?
Absolutely, sir.
So we do have a spinoff of what is it? What's the name of that the old series that Peter Milligan's doing? It's the
X-Statix.
X-Statix. We got the Excellence coming out. This has been rumored for a couple of years now. How are you feeling about this this new spinoff? And does this even fit in the new Age of Krakoa stuff?
I was never the biggest X-Statix fan. I mean, I appreciated it for what it was. I have most of the issues. It was an interesting story, but it wasn't really the best thing. It was definitely not my taste. It definitely had that Milligan Allred, madman feel to it, but done in the Marvel universe. And it was very deviating from kind of what Joe Casey and Grant Morrison were doing on the two major X books at the time. So in a lot of ways, I did like it. But it was very different. As for whether it fits now, I think it's a lot of the same situation. It does not fit. And I think that's kind of what the goal is here. Now, I know that they're going to twist it to fit, especially with the Krakoan era of X-Men. One of the staples of the original run was basically they just kill people indiscriminately, like main characters of the series, just for fun. But now you're in, and then that character would be just gone from the series, and you just move on with a completely different characters. I think they went through almost like 3 full teams of
like the Mystery Men.
Yeah. But now doing it in the Krakoan era does create some interesting new dynamics, especially when you did essentially have 3 different teams, and now you can bring them all back.
A lot of characters.
Yeah. Now you can bring all of them back, and you can have them basically. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest bit to see them basically doing a, kind of, tournament to see who, or just this constant conflict to see who the real X-Statix are. And yeah, I am surprised that they're finally getting to this. I thought that maybe they decided, you know what? Nah, let's not do it. Cause I mean, remember they did that giant size X-Statix a couple of years ago. I read it. It was okay. And I was not really super looking forward to the, X-Statix return whenever they got around to it. But, you know what? Look, especially since, Hickman's now leaving, there's not really a lot of great stuff going on in the X office. I feel like this has an opportunity to actually find a niche this time that it might not have during the early eras of the Hickman run.
Why not just leave this as like an alternative to what's going on in the Krakoan era? Like we have X-Men Legends, and you look over there, you got Symbiote Spider-Man, you got Ben Reilly Spider-Man, contained stories that, happened technically 30 years ago where they're kind of filling in some of the lore. We've got the Maestro series that's filling in some of the that weird lore with that smarter version of Hulk that ends up ruling the world. Why bring it into the current stuff when you could just be an alternative? And it seems like people are enjoying those opportunities to step back in the past and not have to worry about the current continuity.
Well, I think part of it is that if you're going to do I think that they did kind of tell everything that they needed to tell in the original series. So there's not really a lot of space in flashback books for an X-Statix title. And additionally, God forbid that X office gives you anything to, escape from. No, they can't let you fucking escape from this Krakoan crap.
Unless it's X-Men Legends.
Unless it's X-Men Legends, and even that, it only fits in between existing issues. It's like half issues. There's not going to be any new adventure that was never discussed. It's just going to be expanding upon, kind of the space between panels and between issues of stuff from the 80s and 90s. Not any new stories set in that era.
All right, well, let's step away from this X-Statix relaunch and move over into another 90s X-Men icon. We got Rob Liefeld returning to X-Force with the X-Force. I think it's Kill Shot one-shot issue that's coming up. It's going to have a lot of the major characters that he played with during his time at Marvel. It should be fun.
It should be. I mean, look, I make no bones about the fact that I'm a big Rob fan. I always have been a big Rob fan. I am. I'm a mark for Liefeld stuff, especially Liefeld's X stuff. And I really enjoyed his Major X, even though I didn't really, I thought that it kind of ended on a little bit of a weak note. But I really enjoyed it. And I feel like this is Rob just getting into going back and playing in that same sandbox. This is, I'm looking forward to this. From what I've read of a lot of the solicitations and some of the stuff Rob said about it, there's a lot of plot going on in this friggin' book. So I have no idea how they're doing it in a one shot. Maybe it leads into that Deadpool batter blood that we were supposed to get like 3 years ago. Or maybe it is all self-contained, but I do want to see how this goes. I'm curious though, whether or not this book, like unlike the Excellent, I'm really curious on whether or not this book is going to fit into the modern Krakoa era, or if it's just going to be almost set outside of continuity and it's just almost a continuation, kind of like that, Symbiote Spider-Man and Maestro, where it's set in an existing alternate kind of universe or alternate timeline, and it can pretty much get logged in chronologically whenever.
My money's on the latter. It's interesting. Rob and Marvel have a contentious relationship. He speaks his mind on the comic book industry, which isn't exactly welcome in today's comic book industry in the climate that we have today. And there's been a little bit of litigation between the two, some back and forth. But I guess when you're Rob Liefeld and you sell comic books on your name alone, you're one of the few people that can actually do it. You get a place at the table when you want it.
You know what? Rob kind of reminds me of some of the pro wrestlers out there that are constantly at back and forth. Like he kind of reminds me of Brock, where Brock will talk shit about the WWF or WWE, sorry. But then they'll throw him a big contract and he'll hop back in. They'll talk shit on him. He'll talk shit on them. But then when it's time to do business, they know how to do business. And I feel like that's Rob and Marvel's dynamic. They'll talk shit on each other, but the minute it's time to do business, they're both down to do business.
Yeah, it's going to be Rob Liefeld. They're not so accommodating to other people, but not everybody could sell comic books just by throwing Liefeld on the fucking cover.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, Rob's one of those guys. He's one of the few people that doesn't have a tie somewhere else. Like Jim Lee can sell a comic on his name alone, but he's tied to DC. Mark Silvestri could sell a comic on his own, on his name alone, but he's tied to Top Cow. Rob's one of the only ones that's kind of like a full on free agent. He's a mercenary and anybody can bring him in to sell books on name alone. He did it with G.I. Joe recently. He did it with that Archie Shield book. He's done it at DC in recent years, and he's done it at Marvel on and off for the last 30 years. So go get your money, Rob.
They still got the best hair in the business. Now let's move over to this week's comic books. Obviously, Inferno was the big one. We'll wait to hear your opinions on that one. Skip and I already talked about that one for about 25 minutes. Let's get into Wolverine. This time we got Lon Medina on art. Obviously, Ben Percy is writing. We're back to the Bannister CIA story. Apparently, he's given up his job as a CIA agent. He's like a desk pusher guy. And then we've also got like another story with Wolverine and Domino, and I don't know, Quentin's out of the picture. I don't remember who the third agent. Oh, it's Maverick. He's returned to the island. I quite like the Bannister story. I'm sitting there reading this. I'm like, why isn't this like its own comic book at Image, where you have like this CIA officer Bannister guy that's had to give up his job, his exciting life for his kids, and he's getting pulled back into it. It's kind of a compelling character. But when we get over to the superhero stuff with the X-Force members that are in this Wolverine comic, it starts out in that stupid Cohen karaoke bar, which is this lame ass, and then Maverick just shows up, feels completely out of character with the way that they've been presenting him in the Wolverine series, and it was kind of deflating in comparison.
It really was. I mean, look, the Jeff Bannister stuff has been one of the more interesting kind of subplots in the Wolverine title, and it's like Ben Percy just decides to forget about it for 6 issues at a time. Look, this
maddening.
Would be, it is. It really is. None of you people know how
subplots are a thing. You can subplot him through before you highlight that story in an upcoming issue. But just forget about the character and where that story was going for like 4 or 5 months at a time, and then revisit it like you were always there. It's jarring. It probably is okay in the trades, because they're self-contained stories. You get all of that. But as you're reading it monthly, it's like,
it really is
with that stuff.
I mean, this is a conversation for another time, but you're right. It's so jarring, because it's like you had a bunch of stuff that you were supposed to know, but it all happened off panel, and they could have dedicated 1 page of each previous issue for kind of a time lapse up till now, like just a little snapshot. And then they forget about it. And then all of a sudden he's in a completely different position as he was when you last saw him, but you're not supposed to be jarred by that. And it's supposed to make sense, because without any real preamble too, there's no like, hey, and since we last saw Jeff Bannister, blah, 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 this all has changed. But instead it's just, you're like, wait, he was an actual agent before, now he's a desk jock. What the hell's going on? And like, only through his inner monologue can you kind of get a little bit of a bite on it. Now,
and the inner monologue's weird, because you're reading it and it feels like it's first person narration from the character. Then by the end you realize, is it a vlog? Is it an audio blog to Wolverine? Is it a letter to Wolverine? Because he's clearly like speaking to Wolverine while he's giving all this information.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes it really this issue was a lot hard to read. Now I get it. I feel like I'm trying to get where he's going with this, but I mean, look, we're only a couple of months away from a big Wolverine event that Ben Percy is writing, and it feels like we're getting nothing towards that at this point. Like, that's just going to also come
pause
out of
this
nowhere
for 3 months and then revisit it.
Exactly. It feels like this is either not going to be concluded, or this is not leading into that thing, and this is, and it's all jarring. None of it really makes sense, like narratively speaking. Now, the Jeff Bannister thing, though, is the most interesting subplot here. Like, yes. I'm like the spy subterfuge, him kind of being a double agent. He's both protecting the U.S. and he's, helping his buddy out that happens to be from Krakoa and involved in Krakoan security. I like that, because Jeff Bannister seems like a genuinely decent person that's in a shady business. So I like it. And I like the way he's, now his trade craft is a little questionable here. I mean, this is where Tom King might have actually been useful. Like, hey, Ben, call Tom King. He was at least in the CIA. Maybe he knows a little bit better about tradecraft than you. But regardless, I was interested in this, and I liked how it went with him kind of spotting the X-Desk lady coming out of the diner, him checking it out, figuring out what was up with the diner, why she was constantly coming out of there, and realizing that it was essentially a dead drop spot. But then when he picks up the kind of recorder thing, and takes it back to the agency, like his agency safe house, or I guess site, then he has to go out and get lunch and everybody gets slaughtered.
Like, doesn't seem very smart to take an unknown device into your place of work so they could track it back there.
No, you definitely go with an off-site.
Plus, just being able to plug a pair of headphones into a plant and listen to what it's recording.
Yeah.
Seems
really weird that they'd very conveniently have something. I didn't know a lot of plants have USB ports. Maybe it was USB.
It's like plant-based technology, but I just don't think the conversion is all that easy.
No, neither do I. And especially trying to read all the file formats. I mean, I did, but I genuinely liked the idea of where they were going, even if all the little details of the plot just like.
I wish it was its own independent book.
I either wish
the character's cool. Like, I would like to see that character further explored.
Yeah, I was either like that as its own independent book or a kind of constant backup, like B plot or even C plot going on in Wolverine, that where they kind of eventually meet up every once in a while. Now, the Krakoan part of this, I wanted to rip every one of those pages out.
Bad.
Yeah, nothing, under no circumstances is Wolverine the kind of person that would sit at a fucking karaoke bar. No, just, and most of these mutants are not the types that would be going and doing karaoke. That's just not in their personality. So no, that whole part of it's like this goofy bullshit that they add in every single issue. I don't know if this is Ben Percy thinking that he's being cute, or if Ukulele Boy in that office like demands some like cutesy pie bullshit in every single issue, to show how great Krakoa is like an island paradise. Fuck this shit. I'm tired of it. Now, I did like seeing. I liked Maverick coming back in. That was a horrible way to bring him in. Like, it's like they couldn't figure out how to get Wolverine back to like chasing down Maverick and like catching up to him. So they're just like, and he's there doing karaoke just after he said he had no interest in ever coming to that island. Yeah, sure. Okay. Right. No, this is bad. That part of it was really, really bad. I am curious though to see. I want to know what all like the spy shit's going on, like how much they're spying on Krakoa. If there's, you know, like who all their kind of double agents are, whose allegiances to where. That part I'm curious about. Seeing Wolverine in a karaoke bar, I have no interest in.
I'm with you. All right, let's get to S.W.O.R.D. I did not read this. I just never got time for it. Like I said, everybody in the house is sick. What'd you think of S.W.O.R.D? It feels like such an aimless comic book. I don't even know what it's supposed to be anymore.
You know what? I will say one thing, first of all, before I even get started. The art in this, especially compared to last month, is 1,000 times better. I have no idea who this artist is. Jacopo Caamagni. I sorry, dude, I can't pronounce your name. The art's great in this issue. It's a lot more fun. It's not quite, Valerio Schiti or some of the other artists that they've had, but it's also not another Stuart Immonen clone, and it's not a Gary Brown-esque artist. It was pretty good. I liked it. Now the story itself in this was more of that playing space politics between, Abigail Brand and, Henry Gyrick on who's going to be, it's kind of moving pieces around on a chessboard with Gyrick and Brand on who's going to be the, I guess you could say, in charge of our solar system, and for diplomatic purposes and for all that other stuff and defense purposes. Now we do get to find out that Guardian or Vindicator or whatever the hell he's going as these days, James Hudson, is he's on board with Orcus. He has joined Orcus, and that was the interesting part of this. So he's, you have a lot. This is the first time I think we've seen a superhero, like a major modern, like Marvel Universe superhero with any sort of connection to the X-Men, being knowingly a member of Orcus and what Orcus is doing, as it basically a giant, Sentinel creation system. And now, like the story in this one, though, it is mostly about kind of the plot of the Shi'ar showing up on Arakko, Storm not being there to greet them, and them kind of trying to use an ambassador, Frenzy being the ambassador. I can't remember, Xandra, the daughter of Xavier and Lilandra, that is the current, this is another thing they introduced a long time ago, then kind of dropped it, and we're just back to jumping back in months and months later with all this stuff having happened off panel, where Xandra is now like fully the Empress of the Shi'ar. She's still a little green to it, but she's taken on the role completely. She has her Imperial Guard with her, and as they're meeting with the Krakoan ambassadors, what the hell are they called? The Lethal Legion shows up, and it's the new Lethal Legion. And basically, and honestly, the Lethal Legion basically slaughters the Guardians, or the Imperial Guard rather. Now this was something that I did not expect, because Fang dies. He's the one that has the costume that was supposed to be for Wolverine, that Dave Cockrum created when he didn't like the yellow and brown one, or the yellow and blue one that Wolverine had in the original X-Men. A couple of the other, I think Neutron, I can't remember what all the Imperial Guards names are. The giant guy, all of them end up getting killed. Even the only one that doesn't, I think, die is Gladiator, really. But the X-Men have to, like, part of this is them demonstrating that they are somehow superior to the Imperial Guard, because they managed to take out the Lethal Legion. And especially Storm, when she finally shows up right at the end and basically nukes everybody, like, electrocutes everybody, and then all of a sudden they all just kind of leave, like the Lethal Legion. That was kind of like a big, kind of giant glaring plot hole. But we find out right at the end of it that Orcus has had a mole in S.W.O.R.D and the X-Men the entire time, and it's WizKid. So
little shithead, that little turncoat.
Exactly, that little shithead. Now, this is a great way.
How does this work, Doc? Because Professor X is reading their minds and storing their information.
Well, I don't. As far as I'm aware, WizKid has not died yet. Now
It doesn't matter. Everyone's backed up weekly. That's explained. It's part of the protocol.
He's backed up, but that doesn't mean Xavier's actively reviewing his backups. Now he's. I mean, it'd be like getting that massive flow of information. You think they're
like, you know what? There's this WizKid that we could put on this space station. You know, we shouldn't do a background check. It's not like we have all of his memories stored to see if he's a reliable person. Get out of here.
Oh, that actually is a very good point. Now, we don't know how he got into that role, like at this point, like how he became a mole. And it could be that he didn't become a mole. Sage would have done
a background check at a minimum.
I know, but it doesn't mean that he didn't become a mole after joining S.W.O.R.D and after already getting in there. We don't know when.
I've worked for the government, and that's not how it works, Doc. They continuously check on you.
I know, but that doesn't mean that they're continuously checking on him.
I'm just saying, with the way that they've constructed things on Krakoa, you've removed the stakes of death, and you've kind of removed the stakes of there being a mole because you would fucking know it immediately. You'd know if someone was lying to you. There's too many telepaths.
Here's the thing, though. Cable, being this chief security officer for S.W.O.R.D, remember, for the longest time, it was Kid Cable, and they've kind of established that he was just a giant fucking hack. He other than like the original Kid Cable that showed up in Extermination that was a badass, that Kid Cable never actually showed up in the Krakoan era. He was always just this loser kid that had no idea what the hell he was doing. But now that real Cable is back and involved in this, he might have. So it wouldn't surprise me if Kid Cable's, let's just say his security, background checks and everything were pretty half-assed. Now, real Cable is back now, but he might not have had time to go through and upgrade all the security protocols yet.
I ain't buying it. There's way too many telepaths. They're reading everyone's minds. This is like a fascist state. Of course, they're observing everybody and keeping them under surveillance.
That is a good point. So hopefully, though, they could come up with a valid explanation for how WizKid is a mole for Orcus.
Do it as if you do it like Colossus. You got some weird power. He's putting down directions and he doesn't even know it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this issue of S.W.O.R.D, and I would recommend it. It was one of the first ones that didn't seem like it was just a giant filler issue between the next event.
All right, Doc, you got 2 minutes to talk about Inferno. Did you like it or not?
I mostly liked it, but it was a lot like issue 1, where it was just a lot of standing around and, playing politics, a lot of, oh, that thing you thought you knew, you didn't really know, and here's the real truth behind it. It was like Retcon the Comic, issue 2. I enjoy it. It's good. I'm hoping that it gets to actually, I don't know, some kind of real conflict instead of just this passive aggressive conflicts between a bunch of people on a shady as hell ruling council. And now the one thing I will say though is the ending with Colossus. Yeah, that's exactly where the script got changed, because guaranteed that was supposed to be Rogue, because Rogue would have been there to copy Destiny's powers and been the precog that was on Xavier and Magneto and Moira's side, so that they could counter anything that Destiny was going to kind of direct the more villainous side of the council into doing. Because we've essentially set up, you have at this point the Brotherhood on one side, because they are almost all former Brotherhood members except for Sinister, and you have X-Men essentially on the other side. So it's X-Men versus Brotherhood on the council, where all they do is argue instead of actually getting into a fist fight.
Yeah, we're halfway through the event.
And still there hasn't been any action yet.
That's what I found disappointing, but it's an interesting week in X-Men. We've got a new series coming out. The Excellent is finally coming out after being announced a couple years ago. We got this Rob Liefeld X-Force one-shot coming up. Wolverine was kind of half good, half bad, and really wish they would start using subplots, because this forgetting about stories and revisiting them 6 months later makes it a bit jarring. Sounds like Doc is a fan of S.W.O.R.D. There were a lot of events that took place there that he found intriguing, and Inferno needs to pick up the pace.
Yep. But it's 3 recommends.
Hey, it's better than last week.
Absolutely.